Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of The Lifeline. We're real brothers having real conversations about real life. I'm Barry J. Elliott, joined by Linsberg Petway II and Bo Powell. Today, we're continuing the conversation about Mental Health Awareness Month with special guest relationship and sex therapist and author, speaker, Dr. Diane Eunice. Today, we will focus on emotional wellness and connectivity in the context of relationship. Dr. Eunice, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, good morning, and thank you guys for having me. It's a
We're
pleasure to
excited.
be here.
In the building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. Diane. So, man, we're so glad to have you. I've known her for a long time. We go back almost a decade now.
Yeah, it's been
Wow.
almost
It's
10
been a minute.
years.
Yeah,
Wow.
close to it.
It's a long time.
As a matter of fact, she was the one who actually encouraged me to go start my LMFT. And then, unfortunately,
Really?
COVID hit.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I owe a lot to Dr. Diane here. But I'm excited about this conversation this morning. And just for those who know, I mean, obviously you are a sex and relationship therapist. But for the people that's meeting you for the first time, what drew you into that particular work? And what are you seeing most consistently between men and women right now?
So it really wasn't a single aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like watching the same patterns repeat in the different rooms, but with different people, regardless of race. It just doesn't matter. I was realizing that a lot of people are quietly struggling in these relationships, and they're not talking about it. And so what I see most right now is that there is an increase in the number of love starved, sex starved, intimacy starved, communication starved, touch starved relationships, going on, and people are just not having hard conversations about them. And, it's increasing more than ever. I'm reading this book right now. It's by Dr. John Gottman. I guess I know you're familiar with him. And it's called What Makes Love Last. And so he sums up exactly what I'm seeing with couples today. And it's that people, he says, and I'm going to quote it, people are coexisting in these relationships and acting more like adversaries than lovers and are trapped in what I once read is in an absorbing state of negativity, is what he says. And that's exactly what, I'm seeing today. So what really is, it pulls me deeper into seeing how these couples are struggling and not feeling emotionally safe. They're not feeling seen. They're feeling rejected. They're not knowing what to do. They're not knowing how to ask for what they need in these relationships. And so this can impact their mental health. Like I've met people who went into relationships one way and they've come out of the relationships the other way, whether it's with anxiety, whether it's with depression or anything like that. And so, when couples are out of alignment and they're arguing all the time, they're not getting along, it's creating these feelings of anxiety and depression, and it can dysregulate the nervous system. So I talk a lot about the nervous system because and I always tell people, if you're dating, please find someone who feels good to your nervous system, someone who can help you regulate your nervous system and not get it all dysregulated, you know? So it's really important that you have someone that's good for your mental health. When you're going from a me to a we, what are you looking for? We typically look for external things, but I encourage people to look for someone who, what does it feel like when you're with that person? What does your nervous system feel like when you're with that person? And so that's kind of like why I'm in this space. It's a privilege, actually, for me to learn how to help couples learn how to communicate, their needs with each other and translate their emotional experience into something that can be understood by each other. And so that's why I do what I do. I love couples, I love relationships. I tell people that's my jam because, we're just showing up all kind of ways,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, in our relationships. And so, I think, like I said, it is a privilege to walk on that journey with couples and help them kind of, get their relationship back to back into, foundationally back to where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were speaking, you talked about hard conversations. And I think it's one thing to have a conversation, but a totally different thing to have understanding
Mm-hmm.
inside of a conversation. So, what do you think are the biggest misunderstandings men have about women right now? And what are the biggest misunderstandings women have about men?
I think the big misunderstanding that sometimes men have about women is when they're expressing their emotional what they're how they're experiencing them in their relationship. I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding that it's an attack on their character,
Mm-hmm.
or that it's showing them that they're doing something wrong or a complaint. And so instead of looking at it as, hey, maybe she just wants to connect with me, right? Maybe she just wants to um, me to spend more time with her. But for some reason, there's a misunderstanding with some of the men that I work with that, she's putting me down or she's making
Mm-hmm.
me feel bad. And
Mm-hmm.
so with women, there's a misunderstanding that when, I hear a lot, "Well, he doesn't know how to communicate. He's so quiet. He doesn't express his emotions." And it's not that he doesn't know how. Maybe you just don't give him a space to do so. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I do talk to women how important it is, especially for men who don't have the communication skills yet. They never were taught, never learned. And so to have this expectation of you need to talk, you need to talk, you need to talk. But when I do talk, men tell me that, it's met with, different looks.
Mm,
Um, they're made to feel like what they're saying is insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about how women, when it comes to the misunderstanding of how men communicate, I just think there's just not, there's people just don't have the tools to utilize to get their points across. And he may feel like that she's overbearing. She may feel like he's not participating. And so then you have this push. You have somebody that's pushing, and then you have somebody that's withdrawing, and then you have this issue, that dance is going on. And it's simply because they just don't know how to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I gotta say it, because we if you're on social media, you see all the stuff that's out there. What role do you feel like that's playing when it comes to the relationships? I mean, do you feel like it's producing a lot of unrealistic expectations, or we may hear things so often we start to project them in the relationship? Is it causing resentments? You know what I'm saying? Performance. You
Mhm.
know, how do you feel like that's impacting?
Are you talking about social media?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think social media, a big part of it that I see is its visibility. I think it has everything to say about everything and everybody. And, they put most emotionally charged, if you look at some of the things that they put on social media, it's the most emotionally charged relationship experiences on there
Mm-hmm.
for public consumption, especially the men are like this, the women are like that. And so these opinions, I think people just have to be very careful about, what they're looking at and what they're listening to, because it can really start to shape how they sense reality.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it doesn't represent most relationships, that's how people are consuming it. And one thing I also see is people are using their personal experiences as
Mm-hmm.
group conclusions. Like this happened to me in my relationship, so it has to be true, right? So
Uh,
instead of this person hurt me, it's now this is how men are. or this is how women are. And that shift, that makes that divide even wider than it actually is. But, I enjoy some of the raw conversations.
Mhm.
I do. I think, they're bringing issues, especially ones that are taboo, to the forefront.
Hmm.
And we haven't seen that before. And so, but just like anything else, we just have to be very careful of what we're consuming and who's presenting it.
Yeah.
That's another big thing.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
lot of coaches.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we
uh-oh.
have a lot of people who are
Yeah.
saying they do this and do that,
Mm.
and people are really relying on them for information.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think coaches, people who are licensed, clergy, like there's certain people who do have that role, and because they've gone to school, or they've it's in the church or however, and they do counsel people. But I think some of the folks that I see on social media are telling people what they should not be doing or what they
Hmm.
should be doing, but it's based on their own personal experiences. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's lives like in real
Yeah.
time,
Hmm.
and you're a source of influence. So you just have to be so careful, because you want to make sure that you're dispensing accurate information. But that's just me. But getting back on track, I do think the divide is being more amplified and how
Mhm.
we talk about it, and and how we're taking it in.
Yeah.
I think you brought up a great point. You talked about how there are people who are, quote unquote, qualified to have these conversations, such as clergy.
Mhm.
So I'm clergy, and my master's degree was in divinity with concentration in pastoral care and counseling. However, with that, I think it's important for those of us that are in those spaces where we have certain leeway to do those things, we have to know our
Yeah.
limitations,
Mhm.
because there's certain areas that we're not qualified to tap in. And I'm even in the context of being a clergyman, I'm careful about using the word counseling. I'm very cautious, because that can become a legal issue. So I think that is a big piece, because there are people who are dealing with some deep rooted trauma, and you're
Mhm.
trying to do counseling, whether it's relationship, whatever it may be, and you don't necessarily have the bandwidth to deal with that
Right.
level of trauma. So I think
Yeah.
you have to be cautious.
Mhm.
But you touched on it a few moments ago. You talked about how now there are conversations about relationships and the divide. Relationship, or should I say, conversations are becoming more raw, as you said. How do we continue having those conversations, especially about accountability, without turning everything into a man-woman war?
Well, I think when it comes to, but I want to go back to one thing, the last question
Yes,
that
ma'am.
just came to me. I think, years ago we used to hear about people talking about the Joneses, being
Mm.
about, don't be about the Joneses, but we knew who the Joneses were,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
We knew the Joneses were either people that lived across the street, or people that lived, down the street, or people who were in the church. Like, we knew who these folks were. But
Yeah.
now we have access to this wide world web, where we have, the media Joneses now. And so we have people, and the issue with that, and there's nothing wrong with people posting about their relationships on social media. People want to show that, their anniversary pictures or whatever, their vacations, and all of that is fine.
Hmm.
But when we have to take those things into perspective, because sometimes couples will look at those, experiences and real highlights on social media, and they start comparing their relationship to what they're seeing. And so what once was okay with, their date night, or being on the couch cuddling watching a movie, now it's like, well, why can't we do this?
Wow.
Or why they look so happy. They
Mhm.
look
Hmm.
so, they looks like why he look what he does for her, or look what she does for him. And comparison is such a thief.
Mhm.
It's such a thief. And so we have to be very careful of what we're watching because a lot of times people are on social media and it's performance based.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
And so when it's performance based, I always look at what's behind it. Right? So we
Yeah.
have to be very, very careful of what we're consuming in terms of what is true and what's not true, because we don't know what goes on in people's homes. And sometimes these performative, what they're doing on social media is to cover maybe some other things that, are going on inside the home. But they want people to still feel like they're the relationship goals that we should be striving for. And
Uh-oh.
so really just have to be careful about that because they're living, to us, it looks like they're living their best lives, right? But they know behind closed doors, they're living their best lie. And so we have to be really, really careful about, looking at what other people have going on because it could just be a facade that might be their representative.
You got to
Mm.
go back to that. Hold up. Instead of living their best life, they're living their best what? Say that
They're
again.
living their best lie.
Wow. That's good.
That's a bar right there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. One
Wow.
of the things I've always loved about, Dr. Diane, when she posts on social media, it's always so balanced. And it's you
Mm-hmm.
can see such deep introspection in that, introspection in what she posts, that it's not just one sided. I
Right.
can look on there and see, okay, she's got some stuff to say, hey, here's what men are dealing with, but she also say, hey, here's what women are dealing with. So you can see it's such a balanced approach in that she's looking to try to heal and bring folks together, as opposed to just choosing a side or just dealing with what's popular. And what's going to produce likes and
Yeah.
commentary and stuff like that. I think a lot of people have just kind of caught, she talked about it being performance based. It's
Mm-hmm.
performance based and paper driven. And
Mm.
I think we've seen that lead to a lot of things that have become very dangerous, just even in recent conversations. But how do we get to that place to where we can have conversations about accountability to where it doesn't become attacks? We don't start blaming each other. The men start blaming the women start blaming the men.
I just think accountability has no gender.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gender based. It's
Mhm.
three things. It's understanding what I did, it's understanding the impact, and it's understanding what I'm gonna do different. That
Hmm.
doesn't require that doesn't it's not about gender. This is what everyone, in relationships especially, and understand that it's about intent does not supersede impact.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so accountability to me when I was looking at that, it's basically what I'm going to do,
Mhm.
how I'm going to show up differently because I know what I did impacted you in this XYZ way, right? And so yeah, I can't connect it to gender. I know people want to connect it to gender because
Mhm.
they want to say that men um you know and we go back to this men and women things, and that kind of, I don't operate in that space because I just think we're all responsible for our behavior. Now, there are reasons why people may feel like they can't be accountable in relationships, especially if it's used to weaponize them later on in an argument, or if it's being brought up again. But I think at the end of the day, we're too big of an age
Mhm.
not to be able to say I did it.
Yeah.
And whatever the consequences, it is what it is. You did it. You were old enough to do it, so you should be old enough to try to correct it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's gender based. I just think it's individual based.
But Bo
Yeah.
touched on this a little bit earlier, and I have to agree with him. I appreciate your level, and I haven't seen your Facebook post, but just in this conversation, your level of objectivity.
Mhm.
Because a lot of therapists, both male and female, they have a slant on their own preference, and so
Mhm.
how you're able to look objectively at both is amazing, and I appreciate that.
Thank
Um, let's turn for a moment. Talk to us a little bit about what emotional maturity looks like in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Emotional maturity in a relationship, owning your stuff.
Hmm. Okay.
I wanted to say
Okay.
something else, but I know
Yeah.
I can't.
I know it.
And both knows
I know.
me so well. He knows that
Yeah.
I
Oh
just
boy.
lack restraint.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really just really owning your stuff.
Yeah, y'all definitely
I actually
friends.
had. Let me
Y'all
tell you about
definitely
that.
friends, just so you know. Y'all.
I wrote some of these down. So let me find, because I wanted to make sure that I did um, really touch on that one. So hold on. But it really is about accountability. It's about showing up. It's about apologies. It's about holding space for your person. I'm going off the
Mhm.
top of my head because I was. Oh,
Mm.
here it is. Here it is. All right. So I'll go by what I wrote down. It looks like understanding intent, like I said before, does not supersede impact. It looks like protecting the relationship and being protecting the relationship and being a person of integrity when your person is not around. And that's one of my biggest things that I do tell couples because we often want to control. We want to control somebody. We want to control things. But in relationships, you can't control that other person. And
Yeah.
if you're with someone, it's emotional maturity is about not only them, protecting the relationship at all costs when you're not around, being a person of integrity when you're not around,
Mhm.
but you have to y- you have to believe them. All you have is a person's word. You only have their word. You have nothing else to go on. And when they commit treason in their relationship and break that,
Mhm.
then that's a different story, right?
Mm.
So that was two, and let me just go a couple of more. It looks
Treason.
like prioritizing understanding over being right. It looks like allowing your partner to have a different emotional experience than you. Um,
It's good.
that one. I can talk about that all day.
Go
But it's
ahead.
also looks like validating their experience
Mhm.
um, that they're having instead of
Mhm.
minimizing or deflecting or projecting, which
Mm.
people do sometimes. It looks like expressing anger without, assassinating their character in the
Yeah.
process. It looks
Yeah.
like being consistent with your words and your actions and staying engaged during conversations or when things are not feeling comfortable for you and you're not running, but you're going to stay, right? It also looks like giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Give them grace. Grace is my word for all relationships. That's my number one word. It's grace. You got to give your partner grace. They are human. And then it looks like returning to the conversations after space instead of letting issues fade into unresolved distance. And that happens sometimes.
That's
So that to
powerful.
me is what I was thinking, and I jotted down is what emotional maturity looks like in
You use a ve
relation.
you used a very strong word earlier when it comes to
Yeah.
violating relationship, and that word was treason. Talk
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so
committing
talk
treason.
talk talk to us a little bit about relational treason.
Relational treason typically is associated with um, relationship wounds that your partner has inflicted upon you, which is
Mhm.
one that comes to mind is infidelity is a big one.
Mhm.
That's treason.
Wow. That's strong.
That's
That is
treason.
really strong. Yeah.
So, when you put it in that perspective, it carries a little more weight.
Mhm.
It makes
Mhm.
you really think about what you did, your actions. Um, and any type of trauma and trauma means wound anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so you're wounding your partner and you're committing
Wow.
treason.
Wow. Wow. My last question, it's not really much to say after that one, but Just my last question is, you referenced earlier about, right, Selah for real. You referenced earlier about some people's need or feeling like being in a relationship is controlling the other person. Why is that a problem for so many people? Why do you think so many people in relationships feel like they have to control their partner?
How long do you
Uh-oh.
have?
Uh-oh.
I'm just kidding.
Uh-oh.
You know, a lot of it is just a lot of it is because um I'm trying to figure out how to put this where it makes sense. A lot of times I've run across couples where one feels the need to parentify the other one. But they parentify the other
Good
one
Lord.
because they when they started the relationship, that's how it started. And and if you're in a relationship, if you're gonna lead, lead.
Mhm.
But if you turn over the reins of the kingdom to your partner, you can't come back later when they, start taking over, right? So
Mhm.
some people control or take over because that's the position that they were put in when they got married.
Mm.
Mhm.
So then it can look like controlling, right? And I worked with a couple not too long ago, and but now he wants his control back. He wants to start leading. He wants to, but you handed this over to her a long time ago. So now she's
Mhm.
doing all these things and she's making all these decisions and she's controlling things going on in the house and you don't like it. But you started that way.
Wow.
Mhm.
And it's hard to get that control back. They don't want to give that control back, but you handed it over. So I tell people, especially when I'm working with men, if you're going to lead, then you need to start that way. You can't get in the relationship and give your role and your leadership over to your partner, and then time goes by and you want it back.
Yeah,
Mhm.
You want it back, but you gave it away.
man, man.
So, Dr. Diane, so let's kind of park right there. And I know every relationship is different, but
Yeah.
what are some examples when you talk about leading a relationship, for our, because we have a lot of male listeners as well. So what does that look like? What are some examples of leadership in a relationship?
Well, it gets into to me where you see everybody can't lead. Everybody can't be the chief.
Mhm.
Everybody can't be the, I hear alpha females. Alpha females and alpha males, they don't it's kind of hard for them to get along
Mhm.
because somebody wants to take control of things, and they clash, and so when you are taking the lead in the relationship, that means you're still going to consult with your partner, but at the end of the day, somebody has to make the final decision, right? And so, but it's always going to be it's a partnership, but it's still you got somebody who's going to make the decision. And if you're leading your family, that means that you are putting your family in the best position
Mhm.
spiritually, financially, emotionally. You're taking the lead. Men don't understand that it's kind of like a thermostat.
Mm.
Mhm.
Like they control the temperature in the house and don't even know it. If the
Mhm.
house is too hot or if it's too cold or if it's just right, is based a lot of times on the man. And I know it's not a popular, thing for women to grasp that, but when your man comes home, think about how things shift in the home when he walks in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If he's in a good mood, everybody gonna be in a good mood, right? If he's not, then you can feel that too. You feel a shift. And so, but taking the lead, but if you're leading and you're not going anywhere, then that's a problem. Because I hear some men say, I want to lead. I want to do this and I want to do that. But if you're just doing lip service and you're not providing for your family, you're not showing up for them emotionally, and if you're physically present but you're emotionally absent and you're not leading.
Mhm.
You're not leading spiritually, you're not leading financially, you're not leading emotionally, you're just there.
Mhm.
Um, then your partner is going to feel like, well, it's up to me to make sure that things get done. It's up to me to make sure. And I've seen where some leaders and families, the other partner takes care of, when I say everything,
Mhm.
everything. They take care of everything from, even, for the vacations where they're going from, it's yeah.
You
I just
said you.
love that because that's just a big thing in some of the relationships that I work with.
Yeah.
Um, the word submission comes up quite a bit because people like to know my thoughts on it.
Uh-oh.
And but it just, I think that there's on both sides some level of submission, but I still
Sure.
think that somebody is going to have to make the final decision on certain things. But I think it's very important to still consult and make sure that you um get your partner's thoughts, get and consider how they weigh into whatever the matter is, because that's respect.
Mhm.
But
You,
I'm
you
not
s-
gonna far in that because when I do, that just creates a whole different.
but you said something earlier, very key. You moved quickly from it, but you talked about being a leader. You have to be able to take them somewhere. And so,
Yeah,
which
if you're not,
says to
you're the
me,
leader. If you're leading and nobody's following you, you're just taking a stroll.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in order to be a leader, you have to have a vision for where for the family. Like, where's
Where
the
are we
family going?
going?
Yeah,
What's the
yeah,
big? How are you leading me and I don't know where we're going? What's the plan? Where
right.
It's not
Yeah.
that I don't trust you. I just want to have some knowledge of myself so
Yeah.
that I can be a helper for you. I can help you get to that vision. I can help you reach that goal. I can't help you do anything if I don't know where you're going. And if you
Hmm.
don't know where you're going and I don't know where we're going,
We both going into a
I
ditch.
don't have,
Mhm.
That's good.
that's about the sum of it. Like,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Well, man, this has been an incredible conversation, Dr.
Absolutely.
Diane. And,
Is it almost over?
it is almost over, but I want to give you some final thoughts because I know you had some things prepared. So, what would be your final message to men and women out there, as it relates to trying to heal this divide that we have?
Yes, I do have some thoughts on that, and I would like to share them.
Please do.
Because healing, as you know, Bo, too, I do a lot of talking about healing.
Yeah.
And I think in relationships, I don't think people feel like, now let me find it because I wrote something that I want to share. I can't believe it's almost over.
Yeah, I know you got a lot more to say. I can feel
I
it.
do have a lot more to say.
We have to bring you back so you can say
We
it.
have to bring you back. Yep. We have to
I
bring you
have to
back.
go somewhere else and say it, but I'm gonna say this because I got stuff to say. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. So let me see. There was a question about healing, and
Mhm.
I wanted to find that question because it was I don't know, excellent question. Y'all know which one it was?
Yeah, I
I
believe it
believe
was
either
the one.
yeah. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, it was the question about, what actually has to happen for men and women to begin healing and rebuilding trust with each other. I think that's the one. That wasn't it?
I don't think so, but it's okay. So I'll just talk about this from what I can just see where I was.
That's the
I
only
think it
one I
was
can
one
see.
about dating and
Okay.
It was about dating.
Okay.
About
I know what
dating.
you're talking about.
Which one is that,
Yeah.
dear?
Yes. Yeah.
Are
It's,
modern
let's see.
dating expectations realistic anymore, or have we lost sight of
Yeah.
what healthy partnership actually requires? So that
Is
is a
it that one?
question.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
That
only
is
one
a
about
question.
dating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say what I was trying to say is that I think it was a question about um in terms of, are people being more protective of their,
Okay. Yes.
Talking about, yeah.
are they being yeah, so are they being more protective? And one of the things I think I was gonna mention how I think people now are more emotionally self-aware than they used to be. And I think the issue with that is that they may be aware, but they're just not emotionally open. And that's a difference. So when I work with people who have been like divorced, or, who have been cheated on, or somebody who's had trauma, I've noticed that people will hide behind the words "I'm healing."
Hmm.
And it's a way, I think, of just avoiding emotional risk, intimacy, and even emotional exposure. Because I can see I'm not interested in dating right now. I'm healing, right? But
Mhm.
healing is not about avoiding. I think we have to understand that it's not about avoiding, it's learning how to stay present when we're feeling uncomfortable in relationships. And so I wanted to bring that up because healing involves vulnerability. And that's scary. That's a scary word, because you need, somebody seeing you for who you really are. Um, they're getting inside your heart again. But the same heart that you felt betrayed you when you were hurt before, it's kind of hard to trust that heart again. And so I wanted to talk about that because I want to talk to people about not turning healing into a permanent waiting room. I hear people saying, "I'm not ready yet. I need more time. I'm still working on myself." But what they're doing, they're not ready for that level of emotional connection because people are scared. People are
Hmm.
scared, but we can't hide behind healing. Healing is not to avoid things. It's to show us how to, yes, we went through this, but it's supposed to make you less available for love. It isn't supposed to make you less available for love, but it's supposed to make you more capable of love. And
That's good.
so I just want to let people know that and then I hear people say, It's just, I don't want my peace disrupted. I
I'm
don't, I,
protecting my peace. I'm protecting my peace. Yeah.
and so they're equating peace with not feeling any anxiety, without feeling or experience conflict, or being emotionally dysregulated. That's not relationships. We're going to experience those things. Your healing is just going to help you be able to manage and work through that with your partner. So for those out there, and I get it, when we have relied on our instincts and our intuition and our heart and connected with somebody based on what we felt, and then we feel that we've been betrayed by our own body, it is
Hmm.
hard to it is hard to connect with someone. But I just need them to, healing is movement. Healing is, coming out on the other side. And I need people to know too that we never finish healing.
Right.
Healing is something that is on a continuous, we don't ever graduate from healing.
That's good.
Um and so, but since we're out of time, I'll just
Yeah, that's
go in.
good. That's good. And
That's rich.
I'm gonna let that sit for a second because but I want people to be able to connect with you, Dr. Diane. I'm not sure if you're taking on clients, but if you are, how
I
can people
am.
access, how can people take advantage of your services? How can they find you on the internet or social media, whatever the case may be?
So social media, you can go to, is it Dr. Diane Speaks?
It's Dr. Diane.
I can't
So,
remember.
I think it's Dr. Diane Eunice on Facebook.
it's
Is that
Dr.
what it
Diane.
is?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
Dr.
I
Diane.
won't.
It used to be D Speaks.
I think it
Okay.
used to be these. So they can definitely connect with me on online. I do have a group called Beyond the Vows as well. I do see clients. My licensure is in Texas. So if you're in Texas, definitely can reach me at dspeaksup@gmail.com. And, I do take insurance. So, but I specialize in working with couples. And specialize in working with couples with sexual dysfunctions as well. So if you have, you can go on Headway and you can find me there too. But yep, that's where I am. I do have a book coming out called Sex Versations
Mm,
coming out
okay.
soon. And it's not what people think, but I had to get a catchy title. But it really is just about helping couples connect um, with various questions, hard questions.
Congratulations on your new book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Eunice, we appreciate you for joining us for more conversation about mental health. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're excited to
Mhm.
have you on and got to bring you back. I know you got a lot more to say. But to our listeners, today's conversation reminded us that the divide between men and women is real. But division doesn't have to become destiny. Healing begins when we stop performing for culture and start listening to each other with honesty, with empathy, and with accountability. See, too many people are carrying wounds while they're still trying to build relationships, and unhealed pain will always distort connection. Real love requires emotional maturity, vulnerability, patience, and the courage to confront ourselves honestly. Blame may generate attention, but understanding is what creates healing. So hopefully this conversation has challenged all of us to move beyond our stereotypes, defensiveness, and bitterness towards something healthier and more human. And if healing is possible individually, then maybe healing between us is also possible too. Well, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway II, and yours truly, Bo Powell, and our special guest, Dr. Diane Eunice. And we're on a mission to bring light and life into the places people don't always talk about. So stay with us, join the conversation. We want to hear from you because the Lifeline exists to speak life into your life. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.